Hello and welcome to Homer for Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. Alagathos anapo eipo peitom ethapantes. Nuunmen koi messasti te tarpomenoi pilan eitorn. Siitu kai oinoi jota garmen osesti kai alkei. Autara peike paneen kalle horodactyle seios. Carpalimos proneion ekamen lauon te kai hippus. O trunon kai dautoseni protoisi makestai. Hosse fatoi darapanta se penessan basileies. Muuthana gassamenoi diomedea sipo damoio. Kaito te despeisante se pankisien ke hekastos. Enta te koi messanto kai hupnun toron helonto. Enta te koi messanto kai hupnun toron helonto. Amazing. Wow, and with that, we have finished Book 9. Well, we need to translate it first. So go right now and be persuaded, as what I said, all of you, Nuun men koi mes asde. So go fill yourselves up and delight your hearts, pilonet, or your beloved hearts, with food and wine. Koi mes asde, right? Put to sleep. And for indeed there is remainingness in in rest, menos, right, and staying around. There is strength, alke, right, and then because indeed kefane, when the beautiful rhododactylos, or when the rosy-fingered dawn appears quickly by the ships, you should have your people, ekemen laon, your host, tekai hippus o trunon, right, and also stir up your horses, and kai dautoseni protoisin mekestai, and yourselves be ready in the first for battle, to battle. Thus he spoke, and hoi darapantes, and all of them at that point praised the king. They shouted. They were like, wow, this is great. They approved. All the basileia approved. The mython, the myth that was being processed, or that was being brought forward by Diomedes, right, the horse raiser, agas samenoi, right, they were wondering at the myth of Diomedes. And then at that point, then todede, right, spesan teseban, so having done their drinking, right, or libating, right, drink offering, they went to their hut, each of them, and in tadekoi mesanto, then they lulled themselves to sleep there, and they took the gift of sleep. So they lulled themselves down and they took the gift of sleep. You know me, I'm sure everybody on this channel has been listening the entire time. I love this phrase, helonto, hypnodoron, helonto, doron, hypno, helonto. Give you a little combinatorial approach there. I just like it, this idea, like, there's such a interesting way the Iliad, or Homer in general, has a way of describing taking bodily things, right? So like they didn't just go to sleep, right? They took helonto, which is usually like you take a city, or you sack a city, right? Or you take a bow, right? With your hand, right? So they reach out almost and they take the gift of sleep, doron hypnu, right? So I guess in the translation here, it is laid them down and took the gift of sleep, right? Just so great. Anyway, they're satisfied. I would also like to make aware to the audience about, how in today's reading, there's a good sense of there's a good sense of parallelism, right, in the koime santo, and then up here koime saste, right? So there's here, and here. It's just a nice way of like rounding out how this is going. We have this sort of this like ending point, this full stop right up here. This first sentence that Diomedes said, right? Diomedes is giving a very measured approach to what should be going on, right? And they're just going to have to deal with dawn, right? Kephane, kale, vorodactylos eos. We are in a poetic meter, so it's kale, long. Both of them are long, right? Vorodactylos, right? Always a great word. Rosy fingered, yeah. Wonder what this comes from. Yeah. I want to know a lot about it. Anyway, that's fine. I'm sure there's great studies out there on why it's Vorodactylos, one of those great Homeric epithets. Palimos, right? I like this word too. Swiftly, right? Wonder what it comes from. Eager, ravenous, swiftly, right? Yeah, anyway, whatever. We sort of end the embassy, we approach reality here in Book 10, which is that, the embassy has failed, and yet at the same time, it has succeeded because, they are ready, right? So after all the worrying, after all the crying, remember they cried so much, right? After all that, they're still willing to break up this, hearing of how the embassy went with a great cheer for Diomedes, who was not at the embassy, right? But it's still very level approach to what should happen here, which is, of course, that they must stand and fight when the dawn approaches, and that every man himself must be first, ready to fight in battle. Of the kings, the kings praise this, so, they must be first, even in front of their host, which they hold near their ships, and also their horses, which they have spurred on, right? I think this is a great way of, I would remind the audience that, historically it was very important for leaders to fight, right? Or at least, fighting led to leadership and a variety of public sphere. This is something that we don't really usually think about these days, because fighting has changed a lot, but it's worth noting that, the chain of command here is going, they must be altos and protoisin, right? They must be first, right? Kaide, right? Indeed, they must be first to battle, these kings, basileias. And this mythos, right, this word that, this message that Diomedes is saying, right, they praise it very much so. This is something that is very, very important to them. And it's so important to them, and it's so reassuring for them, right, that they are willing to get a great sleep because togan menos esti kaial ke, right? So strength is also to be found in rest. So that's very, very important. Strength is to be found in rest. If you have any trouble sleeping, right, just don't forget that togar menos esti kaial ke, right? So there is strength in sleeping. You are gathering forces as you take a nap. Anyway, that's it for Book 9. Come back tomorrow, and we will continue with Book 10. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day. Take care.